The 3 stacks of cash sat on the mahogany desk like poisoned candy. 500 million won, deliberately placed, meticulously arranged. Sobong Egeum wasn't sleeping. Behind those closed eyes, he was hunting. He had tested 37 people in 6 months. 37 had failed. Today he would prove what he'd always suspected, that innocence itself was just another lie waiting to be exposed. Today he would destroy a 7-year-old boy's reputation before the child even understood what reputation meant. He had no idea that in less than 10 minutes, everything he believed about human nature would shatter like glass. Welcome back, beautiful people. Tell us where you're watching from, and subscribe to see how this unfolds. Sobong Egeum was not asleep. His eyes were shut, his breathing slow and even, as his body sunk deep into the dark burgundy leather of his executive chair. From the doorway he looked like any exhausted CEO grabbing a quick rest. Head tilted back, hands relaxed on the polished mahogany desk, completely vulnerable. But behind those closed lids, Sobong was wide awake. Every nerve was sharp. His pulse thrummed in his ears. He was waiting. On the desk in front of him sat 3 thick stacks of cash, neatly banded, impossible to miss. Enough money to pay a year's rent for most people in Seoul. It looked carelessly left there, as if a busy billionaire had forgotten it. Sobong had not forgotten anything. He was 51, sharp-featured, hair slicked back without a strand out of place even now. His tailored navy suit fit perfectly over his lean frame, white shirt crisp, textured blue tie still knotted tight. He had built his company from a towering name in tech and real estate from nothing. Along the way he had learned one cold truth. Everyone had a price. Partners who smiled at board meetings later tried to sell him out. Employees who swore loyalty vanished with trade secrets. Even family asked for favours more often than they asked about him. So Sobong tested people, quietly, carefully, and today he had set the perfect trap. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, rain lashed the glass and blurred the Seoul skyline. The blinds were half open, letting in grey light that made the office feel colder than it was. It was a Saturday. The building was almost empty. Perfect. His maid, Donna R. Wilson, had worked for him 3 years without a single complaint. She arrived on time, left everything spotless and never asked for anything, until today. His schools were closed because of the storm. She had no one to watch her 7-year-old son, Marcus. She had stood in the hallway, twisting her hands, voice shaking, begging permission to bring the boy along just this once. Sobong had agreed at once. Too fast. Inside, he smiled. Now he heard the soft squeak of the cleaning cart in the hallway, then Donna's nervous whisper. "Marcus, baby, stay right here on this chair. Do not move. Do not touch anything. Mr. Sobong is resting in his office. If he wakes up and sees you wandering, Mommy will lose her job. We'll have nowhere to go, understand?" "Yes, Mommy," came the small, serious reply. Sobong heard Donna's footsteps hurry away toward the executive bathrooms. The office door had been left slightly open. Silence fell, broken only by the rain, and the low hum of the city far below. He waited. And minutes dragged. His neck began to ache from holding the same position, but he did not move. Children were curious. Poor children, he believed, were hungriest for things they could not have. The money was right there. All the boy had to do was walk in and take it. Then he heard it, soft shuffling, fabric against fabric. The boy was standing up. Sobong tensed, every muscle ready. Light footsteps padded across the marble floor, slow and careful. They stopped just outside the office door. Sobong slowed his breathing even more, perfecting the rhythm of sleep. The footsteps entered the room. They came closer, closer. He could almost feel the child's presence beside the desk. The oversized yellow and pink rubber gloves Donna kept on her cart squeaked faintly as small hands moved. Sobong waited for the rustle of paper, the quick grab, the guilty retreat. But none of that came. Instead, something soft and heavy settled gently across his shoulders. His own navy suit jacket, the one that had slipped off the chair onto the desk. Careful gloved hands smoothed it into place. Then a tiny, worried whisper, barely louder than the rain. "Mama says you shouldn't catch cold." Sobong's heart stopped. Sobong Yogeum had not always been this way. 30 years ago, he had been a young man with nothing but a second-hand computer and a head full of ideas. He worked 18-hour days in a tiny apartment that smelled of instant noodles and ambition. He trusted people then, partners who promised to share the risk, investors who swore they believed in his vision, even a cousin who borrowed money for just a few months. One by one, they took what they could and disappeared. The cousin never paid back a one. The partners sold his code to competitors before the ink dried on their contracts. The investors diluted his shares until he almost lost everything, laughing over drinks about the naive kid who thought handshakes meant something. The worst betrayal came from his best friend, Kim Jae-sung. They had grown up together in Busan, shared everything from school lunches to dreams of building an empire. When Sobong's startup finally got its first major contract, a government tech infrastructure project worth billions, Jae-sung was his chief technical officer, the man he trusted with every password, every security code, every secret. 3 weeks before the contract signing, Jae-sung vanished. So did all of Sobong's proprietary algorithms, system architectures, and client lists. And Sobong found out through a business news alert on his phone. His best friend had sold everything to their biggest competitor for 200 million won and a VP position. The government contract evaporated. Sobong's company nearly collapsed. He spent the next 2 years in courtrooms and boardrooms, clawing his company back from the edge of bankruptcy. He won, eventually. His company grew into something massive. Now, at 51, he owned half the new skyscrapers piercing Seoul's skyline. His name glowed on billboards. His net worth scrolled across financial news tickers. But every zero in his bank account felt like another brick in the wall he had built around himself. The final brick had been placed 6 months earlier. A senior vice president he had personally mentored for 8 years was caught selling confidential acquisition plans to a rival. The man cried in the interrogation room, begged for mercy, said he only did it because his wife needed surgery. Sobong paid for the surgery anyway, out of court, quietly, and fired him the same day. Mercy, he decided, was just another word for weakness. After that, the tests began. Small ones at first. A wallet left on a conference table, a laptop open to sensitive files. Every time someone failed. A janitor took cash, an assistant copied documents. Even the security guard once pocketed a lost watch. Sobong never shouted. He simply removed them from his life, quietly and permanently. Trust became a luxury he could not afford. Donna R. Wilson had learned about honesty the hardest way possible. She was born Donna Richards in a small town outside of Atlanta, Georgia, the only child of Marcus Richards Sr. and Evelyn Richards. Her father worked as a night security guard at a textile warehouse. Her mother cleaned houses during the day and sold homemade sweet potato pies on weekends. They had almost nothing, but what they had was earned with dignity. Donna was 8 years old when everything changed. It was a Thursday night in November. Marcus Sr. had just started his shift when 3 men in ski masks broke into the warehouse. They knew the security schedule, knew where the safe was, knew exactly how long they had before police could respond to an alarm. What they didn't know was that Marcus Sr. had stayed late to help a co-worker who'd called in sick. He confronted them. Yeah, not because he was brave, though he was, but because he'd taken an oath to protect that building, and Marcus Sr. believed the oaths meant something. They shot him twice, once in the chest, once in the stomach. Then they took $73,000 from the safe and disappeared into the November darkness. Marcus Sr. died in the ambulance before it reached the hospital. The thieves were never caught. The warehouse owner sent $100 and a fruit basket to the funeral. Donna remembered her mother standing at the gravesite in the rain, holding Donna's small hand so tight it hurt. Evelyn didn't cry, not then. She stood like stone, staring at the cheap casket, while the preacher said words about God's plan that made no sense. That night, back in their tiny apartment, Evelyn finally broke. She held Donna's face in both hands, tears streaming, voice shaking with a fury Donna had never heard before. Your father died because of thieves, evil men who took what wasn't theirs. Evelyn's eyes burned. I want you to promise me something, baby. Promise me on your daddy's grave you will never, ever steal. Not a penny, not a paperclip, not even if you're starving, not even if someone tells you it's okay. Your hands will stay clean, you hear me? Your hands will stay clean. I promise, Mama, 8-year-old Donna had whispered. I promise. That promise had shaped every day of her life since. Evelyn worked herself nearly to death to keep them afloat. She took on extra houses, extra shifts, anything to pay rent and keep Donna in school. She taught her daughter that poverty was not a sin, but stealing was. That dignity wasn't about what you owned, but about what you refused to take. We might be poor, baby, Evelyn would say, scrubbing someone else's floor until her knees bled. But we're honest. That's worth more than all the money in the world. Donna carried that lesson through high school, through community college, through her marriage to Michael Wilson, a kind man, a construction worker with a steady job and gentle hands. When Marcus Jr. was born, Donna held him and whispered the same promise her mother had demanded. Your hands will stay clean, baby, no matter what. Then Michael's construction company went bankrupt. Then Michael got sick. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4, no insurance. Then Michael died, leaving Donna with a 7-year-old son, $47,000 in medical debt and nothing else. She could have stolen. God knows she'd had opportunities. Houses she cleaned, and filled with jewellery and cash, owners who never noticed what they had. Credit cards left on counters, wallets forgotten in coat pockets. But every time she heard her mother's voice, your hands will stay clean. So she worked 3 cleaning jobs, slept 4 hours a night, and taught Marcus the same lesson she'd learned at his age. She showed him how to fold his clothes neatly, even when they were worn thin. How to say please and thank you to everyone, rich or poor. How to help others even when you had nothing to give. We don't steal, baby, she told him every night as she tucked him in. Not ever. That's not who we are. When the opportunity came to work for Sobong Yeogyim, a Korean billionaire who needed a weekend maid for his corporate office, Donna took it gratefully. The pay was better than her other jobs. The building was climate controlled. Mr. Sobong was never there on weekends, so she could work in peace. For 3 years she cleaned that 63rd floor office without incident. She saw things that could have changed her life. Contracts worth millions left on desks, executive credit cards, once even a Rolex forgotten by the bathroom sink. She cleaned around them and never touched a thing. Her hands stayed clean. That Saturday morning, the rain came down hard, drumming against the glass of Sobong's corner office. Donna R. Wilson arrived at 7 sharp, as always, pushing her cleaning cart down the empty hallway. She was 32, tired in a permanent way, but she never complained. Her uniform was pressed, her work flawless. In 3 years she had never asked for a single favour, until today. She knocked softly on Sobong's open door. He looked up from his monitor. Donna stood twisting the hem of her apron, eyes on the floor. "Mr. Sobong, sir, I'm so sorry to bother you." Her voice shook. "The school's closed because of the storm. My sitter cancelled. I don't have anyone else for Marcus. He's 7. He'll be quiet, I swear. I'll keep him right beside me. Just this once." Sobong leaned back in his chair, studying her. Donna's hands trembled. She needed this job the way drowning people need air. He saw the fear in her face. Fear of him. Fear of losing everything. He let the silence stretch just long enough. "Bring him," he said finally. "But he stays out of restricted areas." Relief flooded her features. "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much." Inside, Sobong felt the cold satisfaction of a plan clicking into place. A child would be the perfect test. No adult could resist temptation forever, but a child, hungry, curious, unguarded, would reveal the truth fastest. If the boy took something, Donna would be gone by evening. If the boy resisted, well, Sobong no longer believed that was possible. He ended his calls early, sent his security detail home for the weekend and cleared his schedule. At noon he walked to his private safe, removed 3 thick bundles of cash, 500 million won total, and set them in the centre of his desk like bait. The bands were crisp, the stacks tall enough to cast small shadows under the desk lamp. Careless, tempting, perfect. He loosened his tie just slightly, let his suit jacket slip off one shoulder onto the arm of the chair and settled back into the burgundy leather. He closed his eyes, slowed his breathing, and waited. In the hallway, Donna knelt in front of her son. Marcus sat on a small plastic chair beside the cleaning cart, legs swinging because his feet didn't reach the floor. He wore a plain white tank top and khaki shorts, clothes washed so many times the colours had gone soft. His tight curls were cropped short, and his brown eyes were wide, taking in the gleaming marble and glass of a world he had never seen up close. "Listen to Mommy," Donna whispered, cupping his small face in her work-worn hands. Her fingertips were rough from chemicals and scrubbing, but her touch was gentle. "Sit right here. Don't touch anything. Mr. Sobong is resting in his office. If he wakes up and sees you wandering, Mommy will lose her job. We'll have nowhere to go, okay, baby?" Marcus looked into his mother's eyes and saw something that made his chest tight. Fear, exhaustion, and a desperate hope that he would understand. He thought about their tiny apartment with the leaky ceiling. He thought about the nights Mama said she wasn't hungry so he could have seconds. He thought about how she sometimes cried in the bathroom when she thought he couldn't hear. He wanted to be good. He wanted to help. He wanted Mama to stop being so scared all the time. "Okay, Mommy," he said solemnly. "I'll be good." Donna kissed his forehead, her lips lingering there like a blessing. "I know you will, baby. You're always good. You're the best thing I ever did." Then she stood, smoothed her uniform, and pushed her cart toward the executive restrooms at the far end of the floor. The wheels squeaked faintly as she disappeared around the corner. Marcus sat still for a while, hands folded in his lap, then watching rain streak down the tall windows. The building was quiet except for the storm. He swung his feet. He counted ceiling tiles, 42 in the section he could see. He tried to be good. But Mommy looked so tired this morning. She always looked tired. If he helped her clean just a little, maybe they could go home sooner. Maybe she could rest. He glanced at the cleaning cart. On the lower shelf hung a spare pair of rubber gloves, bright yellow with pink cuffs, way too big for him. Mommy let him wear them sometimes at home when he helped wash dishes. They made him feel strong, like he could do anything, like he could help Mama the way she helped everyone else. Marcus slid off the chair. He pulled the gloves on, tugging until they reached his elbows, floppy and loose. They smelled like lemon cleaner and his mother's hard work. Then he tiptoed toward the open office door, the one with the golden nameplate that read, Sobong Eogium, CEO. He stopped at the threshold and peeked inside. The big room smelled faintly of leather and coffee. Rain blurred the city beyond the windows, making everything look soft and far away. The man in the huge chair had his eyes closed, head tilted back, breathing slow and deep. His navy suit jacket had slipped half off onto the desk, close to 3 tall stacks of money. Marcus hesitated. Mommy said not to go in. But the boss looked cold. The air conditioning hummed loud, and his shoulders had no jacket. Back home, Mama always said you shouldn't let people catch cold, that being kind didn't cost anything, that helping folks was the right thing to do even when they didn't ask. And maybe, if he was very quiet, he could help straighten things a little. Just a little. Then Mommy wouldn't have to work so hard. He took one careful step inside, then another, the oversized gloves squeaking softly with every move. The small footsteps echoed softly in the vast office, each one deliberate, hesitant. Sobong's body tensed beneath the mask of sleep. The rhythm was wrong for an adult. Too light, too careful. A child's steps, closer, closer, right up to the edge of the massive mahogany desk. He heard the faint squeak of rubber, then the soft slide of paper across wood. His pulse spiked. That was it. The sound of bills being touched, tested, gathered. More rustling, careful, almost reverent. Sobong pictured it perfectly. Small hands hovering over the stacks, deciding how much to take before running. He would wait until the boy actually grabbed the money, until there was no doubt. No room for excuses. Then he would spring the trap, call Donna in, and end this charade of innocence. The footsteps shifted. The boy was beside the chair now, close enough that Sobong could feel the faint disturbance of air. He waited for the quick grab, the patter of retreat. Instead, something soft settled across his shoulders. His own navy suit jacket lifted from where it had slipped onto the desk. Oversized gloved hands smoothed it gently into place, tugging it higher like a blanket. A tiny, worried whisper floated down. "Mama says you shouldn't catch cold." The words struck Sobong like a physical blow. For a fraction of a second, his entire worldview tilted on its axis. The careful architecture of cynicism he'd built over 30 years cracked straight down the middle. Then instinct, old, defensive, angry instinct, took over. Before he could think, his eyes snapped open. He surged forward in the chair, hands shooting out to seize the small wrist in an iron grip. "Caught you!" he barked, voice harsh in the quiet room. The boy gasped. His dark eyes went wide with pure terror, the kind of fear that comes from knowing you're powerless, that the adult world has decided you're guilty, that nothing you say will matter. Tears sprang up instantly, spilling down brown cheeks. He tried to pull away, but the grip held. "I knew it," Sobong snarled, pulling the child closer, righteous fury burning in his chest. "I knew no one could resist. What were you doing? What did you take?" Marcus shook his head frantically, words tumbling out between sobs. I didn't. "Don't lie to me," Sobong roared. He glared down, ready to see guilt, greed, as anything that would prove him right, that would confirm what he'd always known about human nature. What he saw froze every muscle in his body. The child wasn't holding money. Both gloved hands, bright yellow rubber with pink cuffs, comically large, drooping past his elbows, clutched only the navy suit jacket still half draped over Sobong's shoulders. The boy had been trying to cover him more carefully when he was grabbed. A choked sob escaped the child. I wasn't stealing, sir. You looked cold. Mama says..." His voice broke. "Mama says you shouldn't let people catch cold. I was just trying to help." Sobong's hand loosened as if burned. He released the wrist and sat back, staring. The stacks of cash sat exactly where he had left them, untouched, unbothered. Not even tempting to this small boy who probably didn't know what 500 million won could buy, but who definitely knew what cold felt like. One bundle had been nudged an inch inward, away from the edge where the jacket might have knocked it over. A few sheets of paper that had been sliding toward the floor had been straightened and pushed safely back. The desk was neater than when Sobong had staged it. "Oh my God!" The whisper came from the doorway. Sobong turned to see Donna frozen in the entrance, one hand clutched over her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. She must have heard him shout. She must have run. "Marcus!" she cried, voice breaking. She dropped her cleaning rag and ran to her son, pulling him against her. "Please, Mr. Sobong, he didn't mean any harm. He's just a little boy. Please don't fire me." "We have nowhere else." She fell to her knees, shielding Marcus with her body, trembling as hard as her child. "I'll pay you back if he took anything," she gasped, words spilling out in pure panic. "I'll work extra shifts. I'll do anything, please. We'll be on the street, please." Sobong could not speak. The sight of them, mother and son huddled together on his office floor, terrified of him, expecting the worst because the worst was all they'd ever gotten from people with power, hit harder than any betrayal ever had. He looked at the untouched money. He looked at the jacket still across his shoulders. He looked at the ridiculous, oversized gloves on the boy's thin arms. He looked at Donna's work-worn hands clutching her son. He looked at 3 years of perfect, uncomplaining service. He looked at 30 years of testing, suspecting, believing the worst. And for the first time in decades, Sobong Eogum felt shame. Slowly, like a man moving underwater, Sobong stood. His legs felt unsteady. His throat was tight. "Marcus," he said, voice rough. The boy peeked out from behind his mother, tears streaming but trying so hard to be brave. His small chest hitched with suppressed sobs. Sobong knelt. Something he could not remember doing in decades. so his eyes were level with the child's. "Why the gloves?" he asked quietly. Marcus sniffed, wiped his nose with the back of one floppy glove. "Mommy wears them to clean. They make her strong. I wanted to be strong like Mommy and help her finish fast so she's not so tired." The words landed like hammer blows. So she's not so tired. This 7-year-old boy, surrounded by enough money to change his life, he had only wanted to help his mother rest. Sobong felt something crack wide open inside his chest, a pain sharp and clean, like air rushing into lungs that had forgotten how to breathe. "And the jacket," his voice barely worked. "You looked cold, sir," Marcus whispered. "Mama always says being kind doesn't cost nothing. That's what Grandma taught her before Grandma died. And Grandma said..." He swallowed hard. "Grandma said Grandpa died because of bad people who steal things, so we don't never steal, never ever, even if we're hungry. Mama promised Grandma, and I promised Mama." Donna's tears started fresh, silent, and wrenching. Sobong stared at this child, this beautiful, innocent, good child, and saw every test he'd ever conducted, every trap he'd ever set, every person he'd removed from his life because they'd failed to live up to an impossible standard. 37 people in 6 months. How many had been genuinely bad? How many had been desperate? How many had been testing themselves, caught in a moment of weakness, one mistake defining them forever? How many had he condemned without mercy? "I was wrong," Sobong said, and the admission felt like pulling shrapnel from a wound. "Marcus, I'm sorry. I scared you. I grabbed you. I accused you. I was completely wrong." Donna stared, mouth open, unable to believe what she was hearing. Sobong reached out slowly this time, resting a hand lightly on the boy's shoulder. Not grabbing, not controlling, just connecting. "You're a good boy," he said, and his voice cracked. "You're better than I deserve to meet." He straightened and walked to the desk. His hand shook slightly as he picked up one of the thick bundles of cash. Hundreds of millions of won, more money than Donna had earned in her entire life. He carried it back and crouched again, pressing it gently into Marcus's gloved hands. "This isn't a trap," he said firmly. "It's not a test. It's a promise. I will pay for your school, every year, the best one. Books, uniforms, everything. When you're older, if you want, I'll teach you what I know about business. I'll help you build whatever future you dream of." Marcus looked at the money, then up at Sobong, confused and still scared. Donna's tears started fresh. "Sir, why? I don't understand." Sobong glanced at the rain still beating against the windows, then back at the small family on his office floor. "Because your son just taught me something I forgot a long time ago," he said, voice low and rough with emotion. "That some people give warmth even when they have none to spare. That goodness exists not because it's rewarded, but because it's who people choose to be." He reached out and carefully pulled the jacket fully around his own shoulders again. It smelled faintly of rain and soap, and the innocence he'd tried so hard to prove didn't exist. "I was cold," he admitted. "Thank you, Marcus." The boy's tears slowed. He managed a tiny, shaky smile. Sobong stood and offered Donna his hand to help her up. For the first time in years, someone took it without fear. As she rose, still clutching Marcus, still not quite believing this was real, Sobong made a decision. "Donna," he said, "I'm giving you a new position, head of facilities management, salary of 150 million won per year. You'll oversee all cleaning and maintenance staff across my companies. You'll have an office, benefits, everything." She swayed on her feet. "Sir, I'm not qualified." "You're more qualified than anyone I've ever hired," he said. "You have integrity, you have dignity. You raised a son who cares more about strangers catching cold than about money he could take. Those qualifications matter more than any degree." Donna's legs gave out. She sat heavily in one of the leather chairs, pulling Marcus onto her lap, both of them crying now. Sobong walked to the window and looked out at the rain-soaked city. For 30 years he had built walls. He had created tests. He had suspected, investigated, and condemned. He had protected himself so well that he'd forgotten what he was protecting his heart for. connection, trust, the possibility that people could be good simply because they chose to be. A 7-year-old boy in oversized gloves had demolished those walls in less than 5 minutes. Outside, the storm kept raging, but inside the high office, something quiet and new had begun to grow. Sunday morning arrived with weak sunlight filtering through dissipating clouds. Sobong sat in his penthouse apartment, unable to sleep, replaying yesterday's events over and over. At 6:47 a.m. his phone rang, unknown number. "Mr. Sobong?" A woman's voice, professional but tense. "This is Detective Park Minji, Seoul Metropolitan Police Financial Crimes Division. I need to speak with you about your employee, Donna R. Wilson." Sobong's blood went cold. "What about her?" "Sir, we've been investigating a series of thefts from corporate buildings over the past 3 years. High-end items, cash, jewellery, always from executive offices on weekends. We finally caught the suspects last night. They're part of an organised ring," Sobong's heart hammered. "And?" "One of them mentioned your building specifically, said they had someone on the inside, a cleaning woman. They claim she provided access codes, schedules, information about security patrols." A pause. "The description matches Donna Wilson." The world tilted. "That's impossible," Sobong said. "I know her. She would never—" "Sir, we need to bring her in for questioning, and we need to search her residence. Can you tell me if you've noticed anything suspicious? Any unexplained access to restricted areas? Any items missing?" Sobong thought of the money on his desk, the untouched stacks, Marcus's small hands adjusting his jacket. "No," he said. "Nothing missing. Nothing suspicious. Mr. Sobong, with respect, these criminals are sophisticated. They're very good at appearing trustworthy. The woman might have been gathering intelligence, studying patterns. We have witness testimony placing similar thefts." "You have the wrong person," Sobong interrupted, voice hard. "Donna Wilson is innocent." "Sir, we have evidence that suggests—" "Then your evidence is wrong." A long silence. "Mr. Sobong will need you to come to the station to give a formal statement, and we'll need to speak with Ms. Wilson today." The call ended. Sobong sat frozen, phone in hand, mind racing. Yesterday he had learned to trust again. Today, everything he'd believed about Donna was being challenged by people whose job was to uncover the truth. The old Sobong, the one who tested everyone, who believed everyone had a price, whispered that maybe the police were right. Maybe he'd been fooled. Maybe even Marcus's sweetness had been part of an elaborate setup. But the new Sobong, the one who'd felt shame yesterday, who'd seen genuine goodness, knew better, didn't he? He picked up his phone and dialed Donna's number. It went straight to voicemail. 3 weeks later, after investigation, interviews, and the kind of legal manoeuvring that only billionaire resources could provide, the truth emerged. Donna Wilson was completely innocent. The theft ring had used a woman with a similar name, Donna Williams, who worked at a different building. A clerical error, a mistaken identification, an unconscious bias had led police to the wrong person. But in those 3 weeks, Sobong learned the most important lesson of his life. He learned it watching Donna face interrogation with quiet dignity. He learned it watching Marcus cry himself to sleep in a temporary shelter while child services investigated. He learned it in the choice he made to stand beside them, hire the best lawyers, refuse to let them face the system alone. The old Sobong would have stepped back, protected himself, waited for proof. The new Sobong chose trust even when it was terrifying, because Marcus had taught him something profound that rainy Saturday. Goodness isn't proven by testing it, it's honoured by protecting it. For 30 years Sobong had tested people to see if they would fail. Now he understood that real strength wasn't in exposing weakness. It was in believing in others strongly enough to help them succeed. Marcus sat at the desk in Sobong's office, the same office where he'd once placed a jacket over the shoulders of a sleeping stranger. He wasn't 7 anymore. Well, he was 7.5, which he insisted was very different. He wore his new school uniform, navy blue with a crest. His pencil moved carefully across homework that would have been impossible at his old school. Donna worked 2 floors down, managing a staff of 30, implementing fair wages and dignification programs Sobong had never considered. And Sobong sat across from Marcus, patient for the first time in decades, helping with math problems and learning what it meant to invest in people, not because of what they could give you, but because of who they already were. Mr. Sobong? Marcus looked up, pencil paused. Why do you help us? Sobong smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes. Because you helped me first, he said simply. You showed me that the best investment isn't in testing people to see if they'll fail. It's in trusting them enough to help them succeed. Marcus thought about this, then nodded seriously. Mama says the same thing. She says people grow toward the light you shine on them, not the shadows you expect. Your mother, Sobong said softly, is the wisest person I've ever met. Outside, rain began to fall again, soft this time, nourishing rather than punishing. And inside, in an office that used to be cold, 3 people who'd learned to trust sat together in the warmth of what they'd built. Not through tests, not through suspicion, but through the simple, radical act of believing that goodness exists and choosing to protect it instead of questioning it. But remember, trust is not naive when it's chosen with open eyes. The strongest people aren't those who never get hurt. They're those who choose to believe in others even after they've been betrayed. Because the alternative, a life of constant testing, perpetual suspicion, and walls so high nothing can reach you, isn't protection. It's just another kind of prison. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let a 7-year-old boy in oversized gloves teach you what you've forgotten. That warmth given freely is worth more than all the money you could ever protect. And sometimes, the person you're really testing isn't the one you're watching. It's yourself. Will you choose fear or will you choose faith? The answer determines not just who you trust, but who you become.